What is up, folks? It is Dr. Remy LeBeau, and I'm coming at you once again from the X-Layer to provide you a very in-depth summary of the 2005 game-changing X-Men storyline that was a big Marvel crossover, House of M. Let's get M to it. As some of you may know, and as I definitely know, this big crossover that occurred in 2005, written by Brian Michael Bendis, was basically the storyline that changed the mutant universe for a very long period of time. Following this storyline, mutants were decimated down to less than 200 in the entire world. Having been decimated, the adversaries of the world that hate mutants started coming after them, and mutants were actually on the verge of potentially being extinct. So there was this big sort of unification across population of mutants that were left, and just a lot of really interesting stuff. Having said all that and having established the significance of this storyline, let's get into the first issue. The issue opens in a bedroom in which Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, has just given birth to twins. You see Vision in the room, you see some Avengers, you see some X-Men. It's a really happy scenario. All of a sudden, Xavier says, Wanda, you gotta put the world back the way it is. So this storyline took place after the Avengers Disassemble storyline, in which the Scarlet Witch went a little crazy, killed some Avengers, including her husband Vision, and Hawkeye. And what happens within this storyline, it's revealed that she's warped reality into an ideal situation in which she did not kill Avengers, in which she still has her children because I guess they were lost at some point. Pulling back from that situation, Wanda is realizing what terrible things she did. As we pull back further in the story, we find out that we are currently on Genosha. Genosha post the big catastrophe that occurred with the killing of 6 million mutants. Magneto has brought Xavier there to try to help Wanda. If Wanda's powers go out of control, anything could happen. Cut to Avengers Tower. It's revealed that Xavier has brought together the astonishing X-Men, which is the X-Men team that Joss Whedon assembled. Xavier has brought this group of X-Men to meet with the Avengers in order to figure out the fate of the Scarlet Witch. Cut back to Genosha, where Quicksilver sneaks into a very dark room. It's night, and Quicksilver reveals to Magneto that the X-Men and the Avengers are currently meeting to decide the fate of the Scarlet Witch, which could potentially lead to them killing her. We cut back to Avengers Tower, where the meeting is continuing, and Captain America has basically decided that it's going to be the Avengers that are going to decide the fate of Wanda. They decide that Emma Frost and the Wasp are going to be sort of the ambassadors that are going to approach her and try to sort of talk her into, maybe a state that won't result in utter chaos. And Doctor Strange has agreed to sort of be the mystical protector of this meeting. Cut back to Genosha, night. The Avengers and the X-Men fly in, they land, they sneak into the building where the Scarlet Witch is being held, and they cannot find her. Emma scans the area, realizes the Scarlet Witch is in another building, so the group moves toward that building. As they approach the other building, the last thing we see is from Peter's perspective, Peter Parker's perspective, Spider-Man, that the world is just going completely to white. Fade out to white. End of issue 1. When the heroes awake, the world is completely different. Mutants are now the dominant species on the planet. They run the culture, they run society, they are the power, united under the House of Magneto, the House of M. Peter Parker is a wrestling superstar who is married to Gwen Stacy and has a kid. His Uncle Ben is alive, and the world for Peter Parker is completely different. Tony Stark is the most successful sapien, which is what they call humans, and he is working out of Chicago. New York's Hell's Kitchen is now the world's worst sapien town, in which all the worst criminal human elements reside, led by this underworld boss by the name of Luke Cage, Power Man. The issue opens in present-day Bronx, where you see a community that's bustling with both humans and mutants. Mutants flying, mutants expressing their mutant powers. And in the background, we see Steve Rogers as an old man living a very unextraordinary life, a very simple life. He's basically not at all important in this world. Cut to an upscale apartment in Connecticut where we have Emma Frost and Cyclops living a very peaceful existence together. They're having breakfast and they're discussing the fact that Emma is going to go meet with the Richards kid, who obviously is Franklin Richard, the son of Sue Storm and Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. Apparently, it's alluded to that the Fantastic Four have died in some sort of outer space mission. Cut to a talk show hosted by Allison Blair. She's interviewing the Wonder Man, Simon Williams, who is apparently in some sort of romantic relationship with Miss Marvel, who apparently is the most popular human superhero. But there is mention of the fact that she is not a mutant, and that seems to be somewhat of a taboo in this society. Cut to Cincinnati, Ohio, where Kitty Pryde is a school teacher. She's got a classroom full of kids, a lot of them are mutants, and she's basically lecturing on the history of mutants. She asks the class, who was the first mutant? And of course, one of the kids answers, name her. Cut to Hell's Kitchen, where a cop enters a seedy bar. He is led into a back room where we see Luke Cage as this underworld boss, and the cop, it turns out, is Sam Wilson, formerly known as Falcon. He is questioning Luke Cage because apparently the night before, Wilson Fisk had been beat to a pulp. And basically he wants to know if Luke Cage is responsible. Cut to Stephen Strange's office. Apparently, Dr. Strange in this world is a psychologist, and he is counseling a certain mutant by the name of Bobby Drake. Bobby is recounting a situation in which he's at the park with his son, and all of a sudden a giant wall appears and appears to be consuming the city, and then it disappears. He's questioning his sanity as a result of this episode, but we all kind of have an idea of what's actually going on, don't we? Cut to Russia. Colossus Pyotr Rasputin is pulling a gigantic plow, and he's plowing this gigantic field. It's a very peaceful scene, and that's really all we see of Colossus in this entire storyline. Cut to a laboratory where Dr. Henry Pym, who in the actual real world was killed by Scarlet Witch along with Hawkeye and Vision, seems to be alive. He's working with Henry McCoy, Beast, in a laboratory, and it's revealed through their discussion that they work for Tony Stark. Hank Pym is interested in sort of doing some experiments to try to isolate the mutant gene. And Henry warns him that this sort of research could potentially be deemed anti-mutant, given that Hank Pym is human, and there could potentially be some serious repercussions for him if he continues his work. Cut to, once again, Paris, where Storm, Ororo Monroe, seems to be dressing up in a really stylish, expensive gown. It's revealed that she is planning her wardrobe for a huge event that's occurring at the House of Magnus. Apparently, this is where we start to first get an indication of the importance of Magneto and his family in this world, and the relationship that Storm and others have to this house. Cut to, once again, Wolverine. He's having a Weapon X dream. He's being experimented on. All of a sudden he wakes up and he's with a redhead. The redhead reveals herself to be Mystique. So Logan and Mystique seem to be romantically entangled in this world. Logan leaves the room, and it's revealed that they are actually on a giant helicarrier, apparently belonging to S.H.I.E.L.D. The helicarrier is being escorted by these Sentinels. There's Magneto type of design elements built into these giant Sentinels that are part of some giant fleet or force that likely represents the House of M. End of issue 2.